we have to go into a meeting every day. And we don't have to do that. We stay in touch through text. And then we do weekly calls now so we can stay on the same page. But this is absolutely possible. This movement is possible to be led from around the world. And we do have readers, like you say, in Africa, in the UK. So it's beautiful to see how this community is growing.
I like that. So caller from Maryland, area code 803, last four digits, 4256. Since you've heard the ladies' testimonies, you're calling in from Maryland, am I right?
Yes.
Okay, any questions or comments for the ladies since they've given you a little bit of their testimony?
No questions, but just as Marissa was sharing her testimony about how she, when she had gotten diagnosed, and she was diagnosed at an early age, and it was just in her feelings of disbelief, and I was just thinking, as she was saying it, I was just thinking to myself, I felt the exact same way. I was diagnosed, I was 36 when I got diagnosed, and when I got the diagnosis, I was like, how can I? Because I'm so young, and when you associate breast cancer, you always normally think about older women getting the disease, and it's like, how can I have it, and I'm so young, and I'm healthy? Well, at least I thought I was until I got this diagnosis, and it was, I had those moments where, I questioned why, I had those why me moments. I got angry, and, as a woman of color, as an African-American woman, women, our hair is one of our most prized possessions, and that was when I was going through my journey. That was devastating, moments for me when I went through, when I lost my hair, and you have those supporters that that were there with you, but then you have people that were saying to me, it's just hair, it'll grow back. It's like, how dare you say that? You're not going through what I'm going through.
Right.
So.
That you made a valid point, because I posted something, interestingly enough, on Instagram with there's another group that I follow on Instagram, and it was a question that I posted to a few. Some people, I think they don't read well. They just like your post. But the question raised was, what is something, the most thoughtful thing a friend or a caregiver has ever done for you? Or what was one of those things you felt when somebody told you, like, it could have been worse? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that make a person feel? You know what I'm saying?
Like,
because I think, right. And so I posted that question to a few people, and I got some interesting responses, because I think when a person is not in your shoes, they really don't know what to say, but they try to say something, and sometimes for every action is a reaction, guys. So they don't sometimes like what we have to say. So that's why we're all sticking together. You know what I mean? Area code 253, last four digits, 5549. You're a supporter of Marissa. You have any questions or comments for some of the things that you've heard tonight?
No, I think just one thing that stands out to me most was, I think when I was with Marissa, I was scared to talk to her and have regular conversations. Like, her problem is bigger than my problem, so I don't want to talk about my problem with her. But I think one of the biggest things that I've realized, and I continue to share this conversation, is that you need to treat people who are going through this situation like they're normal. Have normal conversations with them. Don't make it that awkward situation. And if you know that they need you to just come sit in their living room and just sit in their living room and not say anything, don't feel bad about doing it, but continue to have those regular conversations to make the situation as normal as it could possibly be. And when they want to share, they will share.
Amen. So I got a question. We're going to go around the table. We'll start with Marissa first, then Miss Jasmine, and we'll start with 803 and then 253, okay? When living with cancer, There's two questions I'm going to ask you guys, okay? So this is the first. What words would you most want to hear from your family or friends? That's one. And then what would you not want to hear? We'll start with Marissa. What would you say to that question?
What would I want to hear?
And be transparent because this is your time to shine, sis.
I don't even necessarily know if it's even anything that I would want to hear. When people ask me I think the common response for people to say when you hear that somebody's sick or they're going through something is they say, if you let me know if you need anything, and then it's just that, right? But for somebody like me who is always strong and I don't like to ask for help, I'm never going to tell you if I need something. So I try to tell people now, just do. Just do. Don't ask somebody what they need, just go on ahead and do. So that means if you're going to just get an Amazon and you send them something that way, if you just send them a gas card, either them or their caregivers or caretakers can use that, to get them back and forth to their treatment. So it's not necessarily what I would want to hear. I like to see what people are going to do. So just do something. What I don't like to hear is, or while I was going through that, was just like, oh, it could be worse. Because it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, you being like, okay, so I could be dead, so that could be worse. But,
So do you feel like when they say that they're, like, pretty much taking away from your plight altogether, like making less of it than it is?
Yes, but at the same time, what I have noticed is that when people say different things like that could be triggers for me or triggers for other people, it's more so that they are saying these things to calm themselves or to pacify themselves. So I do try to give people grace when they do that, even though I may roll my eyes or I have this whole internal thing with myself. I know that makes them feel better. Because another thing that I do always say, too.
I agree with you, and honestly, sis, don't hold back on those feelings because I totally know where you're coming from because you do matter. Your feelings matter.
Right. And when somebody is diagnosed, your friends and family are diagnosed as well. They go through their own set of emotions. They have their own things that they have to process. I know for example, like when my sister would come home and she would see me to help me, I know that was hard for her because, literally I was on the couch and could not move. And so to see somebody that's always on the go and busy and moving to the point where they're literally looks like they are, pretty much dying. Like I can imagine what that's like looking at that from the outside in.
I agree with you because when my niece was going through chemo, I used to have to suck up the tears and wipe my face before I went into her room because, she was so frail and tiny. She's 3 years old, her body is so skinny, her hair is gone, and she was always in such a positive demeanor that she would look at me and say, Titi, don't worry, God's got me. I'm going to get through this. And I used to, I felt what you said just illuminated in my mind that they too are going through what you're going through. And now I understand fully what you're talking about. So I appreciate that. Jazz, what would you have to say to this when living with cancer? What words would you most want to hear from family or friends, and what would you not want to hear?
The best thing that I heard was from someone that was my friend at the time, and she gave me permission to feel how I felt. I think that's a really powerful thing because comparative pain is real. I think it sucks when you're going through what you're going through and then somebody says, like, I have a cold, but you have cancer. I can't feel bad. And it's like, I feel like everyone, as one thing that I tell women all the time when they're sharing their stories or when they make comments is, like, you are entitled to feel how you feel about your story. Your experiences are valid. Your feelings are valid. And I remember the day of my mastectomy, I cried in the car, like, all the way there. My mom and my dad, they were in a different car, and my uncle and my aunt had came down. to really support my mom and I. And they were in a different car, so it was me and my husband. And like it was about, so I was 26, and it was about 2 weeks later, and it felt like everything was moving really fast. And I cried in the car, and then I sat in the car before we went in, and I fixed my face, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And I remember, like, feeling like I had to be strong for people around me. And then afterwards, like, rolling into the operating room, I was literally shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. And after that point, I had to think, like, man, I don't have time to be strong for everybody else. Like, this is how I feel. I need to validate that by saying, like, no, I don't feel good today. No, I don't feel like doing that. Yes, I'm tired. And I think the thing that I did not like to hear, I didn't like people that have not had the experience, gone through the experience, to tell me how I should feel or how I should respond. I remember, like, after radiation, someone's like, oh, this is like a skin tan. And I was like, you have no idea how painful radiation gets to. You're with your skin falling off and the swelling, and, like, it's so much more intense. But for someone on the outside to be like, oh, it just looks like a tan, like, that really, they didn't really have a good perspective to comment on the situation I felt.
I like that. I like your perspective, and I actually I admire some of the things you just said, because I realize, too, that some people will say, oh, I stubbed my toe, and they'll say, well, girl, I stubbed my toe harder. So it's like, bitch, what are you talking about? Like, can I get my 5 minutes? You know what I'm saying? Like, we ain't talking about you. You know what I mean? Like, when I came out of the ER, I sent my aunt in Florida the video of how painful I was. You know, that was scary for me to have to go to get rushed there in emergency, and to have your breast look like it's the size of a cantaloupe. That was so freaking me out. So when I sent her the video, she's going to tell me, Taisha, you know, I'm going to call you later or text you later because I got a migraine. I'm like, you know what? Don't do me no favors. Please don't call me, because I'm going to curse you out. Like, that is so disrespectful in every area of my life that I'm honestly taking names and numbers and Xing people out of my life right this very moment because of that. So I totally am passionate about what you said, because that is just, it's very insensitive. It's very insensitive, and I think until a person walks a mile in your shoes, they will never understand what we go through. So thank you for your testimony. Phone number 253, last 4 digits, 5549. I know you are not affected by it, but you may have some comments about what we're all saying. Do you have anything to say?
I would have to say it's just listening to these things are just important things to share. So for me, for other friends that I've seen be in situations where they're like, oh, so-and-so in my family have breast cancer, I'm not afraid to share now and say, hey, just go do for them, or hey, just have that regular conversation, because I'm never going to understand what you guys have been through from the perspective of having it, but I can understand from the perspective of the friends and family go through it as well. And so to just be able to have those conversations and make it seem like it's never going to be a regular thing, but how do you get through it and make somebody as comfortable as possible? So it's just, you know, eye-opening to see and hear everything.
Thank you. Now, my lady in Baltimore, Maryland, our sister who's a survivor, 5 years,
yes,
remission and clean. What would you have to say? What would you consider what you don't want to hear, and what would you want to hear from friends and family, and what would you don't want to hear?
Well, when I was going through, when I got diagnosed, I think as I was thinking back over it, the best words that came to me was, I'm going to be here for you every step of the way. My best friend, she was probably one of the first, after calling my mom, my best friend was the